Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. The bathroom was still warm from the shower, steam clinging to the mirror like a secret it refused to let go. I bent to grab my towel, water tracing its way down my back, when suddenly his hand found me, firm, certain, pressing me softly yet undeniably against the cool tile wall. I froze, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. The air thickened. His closeness carried that mix of familiarity and unpredictability that only years of love can sharpen. My breath hitched as I realized I wasn't just standing in front of my husband, I was standing on the edge of something deeper, something that blurred the line between comfort and fire. His presence wrapped around me, grounding and overwhelming all at once. Every glance we shared was a story unfinished. Every touch whispered what words could never hold. We'd been together long enough to know each other's rhythms, but still, there was mystery in the silence, the kind that only reveals itself when love burns steady beneath the surface. I wanted to speak, but the words dissolved before they ever reached my lips. Instead, I felt the safety of his hand. The quiet authority in the way he held me. The unspoken promise that this was not about guilt or doubt, but about surrendering to trust, to something only two hearts could create behind closed doors. And yet, inside me stirred a fragile battle, the need for control, the ache of release. My pulse raced against the quiet hum of dripping water, against the steady rhythm of his breath. My mind told me to step away, but my body leaned closer. Time slowed. The towel slipped from my hand, forgotten, as my knees weakened, not from exhaustion, but from the gravity of emotion. Desire wrapped itself in love, and love wrapped itself in something older, stronger, more undeniable. Just when I thought I knew where this moment was heading, he paused, his lips inches away, his silence heavier than any kiss. My chest rose, waiting, begging, questioning. And that's where everything hung, between what was about to happen and what had not yet been said. The space between us was thinner than air, charged with something I couldn't name. His breath brushed across my skin, yet he didn't move closer. He lingered, as if giving me the chance to choose, to step forward into the fire or retreat into the safety of silence. It struck me then how far we had come. We weren't just two people caught in the heat of the moment. We were two lives woven together by late-night arguments, quiet forgiveness, Sunday mornings heavy with laughter, and days when love was more work than magic. He was my husband, yes, but he was also the boy who once held my hand awkwardly, terrified of losing me before he'd ever really had me. And here we were, years later, with scars invisible to anyone but us. His jaw tightened, as though carrying the weight of every promise he had made and feared breaking. I could see it in his eyes, that unspoken question, "Do you still choose me, even now?" My chest ached, not from doubt, but from the depth of it all. Love wasn't the butterflies people spoke of in stories. It was this, messy, raw, vulnerable. It was standing half-dressed and dripping on bathroom tiles, realizing that trust is built in these small, fragile moments where one could break the other's heart without even meaning to. I felt his hand slide just slightly, not in dominance, but in reassurance. A silent vow. He didn't need to say anything. His restraint spoke louder than any declaration. He was holding back, waiting, giving me the space to breathe when part of me wanted him to take it away. My pulse quickened, torn between fear and longing. Did he know how much power he held in that stillness? Did he know that my silence wasn't rejection, but surrender, an aching desire wrapped in the armor of hesitation? The steam curled around us like a veil, blurring the edges of the world. I wanted to ask him what he was thinking, but I already knew. I could read it in the lines of his face, the softness hidden beneath his resolve. He wanted me to remember, not just his touch, but his love. And just as I thought I might step into him completely, he pulled back half an inch, leaving me suspended in the unbearable sweetness of not knowing what would happen next. The half-inch of distance between us felt like a canyon. He looked at me as if searching for an answer I hadn't yet learned how to give. My fingers twitched at my sides, wanting to reach for him, but the weight of our history held me still. In the silence, memories rose like shadows. I thought of the night we almost broke, two stubborn souls yelling across a kitchen table until our throats gave out. I thought of the apology that never came in words but in the way he held me afterward, arms trembling as though he feared I might slip away. Those scars never left, they lived quietly in us, shaping the way we touched, the way we hesitated now. His eyes softened, and I wondered if he, too, was remembering. We weren't perfect. We had hurt each other, disappointed each other, drifted into silence more times than I wanted to admit. And yet, beneath all of it, there was this magnetic pull neither of us could escape. It was love, yes, but also the ache of needing to prove, again and again, that we still chose each other. I drew in a shaky breath. What if I disappoint him again? What if I'm not enough? The questions churned, uninvited, reminders of every time I'd hidden pieces of myself out of fear. Vulnerability wasn't easy, even in marriage. Maybe especially in marriage. His thumb brushed the edge of the tile, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "You're quiet," he whispered finally, his voice low, hesitant. "I don't know what to say," I admitted, though what I meant was, I don't know how to let myself fall without looking for the ground. For a heartbeat, his face faltered, revealing the same uncertainty I carried. Then he steadied, his gaze deepening, protective and daring at once. He leaned in, not fully, just enough that the space between us became unbearable. And I realized the conflict wasn't between us, but inside me. Between the safety of staying guarded and the terrifying beauty of letting go. My body leaned toward him before my mind could catch up, betraying what I truly wanted. But just as I thought the moment would break open, he pulled back again, measured, deliberate. His restraint stung and soothed at once, leaving me suspended in a storm of want, fear, and aching love. The steam swirled thicker, the room holding its breath with me. The silence between us grew louder than words, like a drumbeat beneath the skin. He was close enough that I could feel his warmth, yet far enough that I ached for the missing space to collapse. My chest rose sharply, each breath colliding with the weight of his restraint. Why wouldn't he close the distance? Why was he holding back when every fiber of me was begging for release? Because he knew me. Because he knew the pieces I kept hidden, the part of me that feared losing control, the part that still carried doubts from years we'd almost broken. He wasn't just my husband in this moment, he was my mirror. And in that mirror, I saw both my fear and my longing reflected back at me. His hand, steady against the tile, trembled just barely, betraying the storm inside him. I wanted to touch him, to erase the hesitation in his eyes, but my body froze, tangled in the invisible thread of anticipation. The steam around us thickened, curling like smoke, blurring the edges of everything but him. I thought of the promises we made when we were younger, when love was easy, untested. I thought of the promises we broke without meaning to. And now, standing here, pressed between the cold wall and his heat, I realized this was not about passion alone. This was about trust. About daring to open myself without guarantees. My throat tightened. "Say something," I whispered, my voice trembling, raw. His eyes burned into mine, but his lips barely moved. "If I say it, there's no going back." The words crashed through me like thunder. My heart pounded, both terrified and hungry for what he might reveal. What could he mean? What truth hung between us, unspoken, too heavy to name? I felt myself sway, caught in the pull of him, the magnetic inevitability of us. My legs weakened, not from fatigue but from surrender. My body leaned forward ever so slightly, betraying my heart's choice before my mind could approve it. And still, he held, firm, steady, restrained. His nearness was fire, his distance was torture, and I was suspended in both, caught in the unbearable beauty of waiting. The moment pressed tighter, sharper, as though the walls themselves were bending inward, demanding a breaking point. But the break never came. Only the silence, the breath, the aching closeness of a love too heavy to contain, yet not yet set free. The air was too heavy to breathe, too charged to ignore. I thought the moment would finally break, but instead, he stepped back half an inch more, so small a movement, yet it split something inside me. My hand shot forward, fingers grazing his wrist before I even realized what I was doing. "Don't," I whispered, softer than a plea, harder than a command. He froze, his eyes wide, startled not by my touch, but by the urgency behind it. For the first time tonight, he looked uncertain, as if the ground beneath us had shifted. And maybe it had. "I'm not pulling away," he said slowly. "I'm holding myself back, because I need to know you want this as much as I do." His words hit harder than his touch ever could. He wasn't doubting us, he was doubting me, doubting whether my silence was a wall or a door. I swallowed hard, the memory of our last real fight burning in my chest. The night I accused him of not seeing me, of going through the motions while I was quietly unraveling. He had listened then, but had he believed me? Or was this moment proof that he still carried the weight of that night, still afraid that one wrong move would break what we had left? The truth was I did want him, desperately, completely. But beneath that truth lurked a shadow I couldn't shake. What if wanting wasn't enough? What if love, in its purest form, demanded more than desire, demanded a vulnerability I wasn't sure I could survive? "I don't want safety tonight," I finally said, my voice trembling. "I want you." The words hung between us like lightning, daring, fragile. His jaw clenched, and for the first time, I saw his restraint falter. His hand shifted, fingers brushing my arm, light, testing, almost reverent. But instead of closing the gap, he stilled again, his forehead lowering until it rested gently against mine. His breath was warm, uneven. "Then tell me everything you've been afraid to say," he whispered. And there it was, the twist I hadn't expected. This wasn't about passion at all. It was about confession, about facing the parts of myself I had kept hidden even from him. The steam curled tighter around us, as though the walls themselves were leaning closer to listen. My lips parted, but the words refused to come. And in that unbearable pause, I realized the real climax wasn't touch, it was truth. His forehead pressed against mine, steady, grounding, waiting. The silence stretched, but it was no longer heavy, it was expectant, like the pause before a storm breaks. My throat burned with the weight of unsaid words, every heartbeat daring me to release what I had carried for too long. "I'm afraid," I finally whispered. "Afraid that even after all these years, I'll never be enough. That one day you'll wake up and see me as ordinary, and wish you hadn't stayed." The confession cracked something open. My voice shook, raw, fragile, but the truth spilled anyway. Tears blurred my vision, mixing with the steam on my cheeks. I had never meant to say it, never meant to hand him my deepest wound. But here it was, laid bare in the space between us. For a moment, he was silent. Then his hand lifted, brushing a strand of wet hair from my face with aching tenderness. His eyes locked on mine, fierce and unyielding. "You think I stay because it's easy?" His voice was low, trembling with emotion. "I stay because every time I look at you, I see the life we built together. The fights, the laughter, the nights we almost broke. And still, you are the only choice I've ever wanted to make, again and again." His words struck like lightning, burning through every shadow I had been hiding in. My knees weakened, but this time it wasn't from hesitation, it was from release, from the overwhelming relief of being seen. Then came the twist. His own voice cracked as he added, almost in a whisper, "I've been afraid too. Afraid that my silence, my restraint, would make you think I didn't want you anymore. But the truth is, I've wanted you every day. I just didn't know if you wanted me back." The weight of it shattered the distance between us. My hand rose to his face, trembling, certain. "I do," I breathed. "I always have." The dam broke. His lips found mine, not desperate, but sure, filled with years of love, pain, and forgiveness pouring into a single touch. The steam wrapped around us like a witness, the water still dripping, the walls still holding our secrets. And for the first time in a long time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was whole. The kiss lingered, not in urgency but in truth. It was slow, steady, a reminder that sometimes love is not about burning fast but about burning long. When we finally pulled apart, the steam had thinned, and the bathroom felt less like a stage of tension and more like a sanctuary. His hand remained at my jaw, fingers tracing gently, as if memorizing me all over again. I met his gaze and saw something I hadn't noticed in years, not just love, but certainty. The kind that doesn't demand perfection, only presence. We stood there for a while, breathing together, letting the quiet fill us instead of divide us. I realized then that the fight wasn't about desire or restraint. It was about fear, the kind we both carried silently, afraid to name out loud. Tonight, in this fragile space, we had torn it open. And instead of falling apart, we found each other again. "I don't want to keep doubting," I said softly. "Not you. Not us." His lips curved into the smallest smile, tender and unguarded. "Then let's promise this, no more silence where it matters. If it hurts, we'll say it. If we want, we'll show it. No more walls." The promise felt simple, yet it carried the weight of everything we'd been through. I nodded, feeling lighter, as if some invisible thread that once bound my chest had finally loosened. The steam faded further, revealing the ordinary room around us. Tiled walls. Water dripping from the shower head. Towels waiting on the counter. Life itself, unchanged. And yet, we had changed, subtly, deeply. Two people the same as before, and somehow not the same at all. We gathered ourselves slowly, hand in hand, our silence now soft instead of sharp. As we stepped out of the bathroom, I glanced back once, knowing I'd remember that space not just as a room, but as the night we turned fear into truth. Because love, I realized, isn't proven in grand gestures. It's proven in moments like this, messy, unguarded, human. And as the door closed behind us, one thought remained clear: we had chosen each other again.